Do you have any questions for me? This is often the way a hiring manager will wrap up the interview. So hopefully you've been asking questions all along, but I want you to make sure that you have some questions ready when you're asked, do you have any questions for me? If you're new to the channel, my name is Bill Benoist. I'm a certified professional career coach here in Silicon Valley. And in today's video, I'm going to answer a question that's often posed to me in my coaching practice, and that is, well, what kind of questions should I be asking the hiring manager? So this is a great opportunity for you to really, dig down and discover whether or not this is the right position for you, the right company for you. So you want to, really stage these questions strategically to help you determine that. And I'm going to break this down into two groups. One, if you're an individual contributor, and two, if you are a position, if you're applying for a position as a manager or more in the executive role. So let's talk about individual contributor for a moment. You want to determine whether or not this is the right fit, if this is the right company. And one of the ways that you can do this is by asking questions at the end. Strategic questions, that is. So for example, you could ask the hiring managers, in their own words, can they describe the job responsibility? So in other words, you can approach it like this. You can sit there and say, Mr. Hiring Manager, I have thoroughly read the job description. I understand it the way, it is written, but in your own words, can you describe what you see as the responsibilities for this position? The reason why I suggest this is because, job descriptions have been written a lot of times many, many years ago. Things have changed. It may not even been the hiring manager that wrote that job description. It could be somebody in the HR department, and that hiring manager could have completely different expectations than what the job description really entails. So that's a great question to ask, to help you determine whether or not this position is a right fit for you. Another one which would, show a little bit more inside, what the hiring manager is thinking, and that is, what are your expectations for this role? And then a third one could be, what do you see as the biggest challenges for this role? Again, these are some questions that are not going to be on the job description, and yet it can give you a little bit better insight into what you can expect if you were to accept this offer, if an offer is made to you. Now, let's talk about if you're applying for a manager or an executive role. I want you to think bigger than the individual contributor, okay? You need to think bigger. And the more higher the role is in the company, the bigger I want you to think. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say if you're interviewing as a C-level executive, or maybe a senior vice president or a senior director, then you could be talking about the industry. What do you see as the challenges in the next 5 years for the industry? If you are just maybe a level below that, you could be talking about the company. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges with the company? What is the leadership style primarily of this company? Not what is your leadership style, but what do you see as the leadership style of this company? I want you to think of questions in these areas here, because these are really kind of the bigger scope questions, and that is vision. What do you see as, or what is your vision for the company in the next couple of years? I want you to think about vision. I want you to think about leadership, not just what their leadership style is, but what's the overall leadership of the company. I want you to think about operations management. I want you to think financials, budgets. What's the overall budget of the IT department or the IS department, whatever, position that you're applying for there. What is the culture of the company, or do they looking to change the culture of the company? And then also even team building. These are levels, these are questions that are levels a lot higher than, say, the individual contributor. And that's what you want to focus on. Now, I've talked about something in past videos, and that is you're often interviewing with either an entertainer or somebody that likes to be entertained. This is one of the most popular videos I did, and I put a link to it in the upper right hand corner. But what I want you to consider is that you may be talking to somebody who really likes to talk, or you want to be talking, or you will be talking with somebody that really wants to listen. And if it's a person that likes to talk, then you want to keep them talking. So something else that you can do, and this is in either one of these positions, whether it's an individual contributor or somebody that is, applying as a manager or a senior level executive. And that is, you need to make sure that you are researching this person as best as possible, and use LinkedIn to do this. Find out some things about it. Let's say, for example, that the person has been working with this company for a number of years, and you can go ahead and say, I've looked at your LinkedIn profile. I see that you've been working for this company, for a number of years. I'd love to know a little bit more about what brought you to this company. These are the kind of questions that will get the person talking, and they like to entertain. And if you think back over your career, during the interviews you've had, you probably had some interviewers that like to talk about themselves, like to talk about the company, and you had other ones that would ask a lot of questions and would sit back and listen. So you don't want to be asking these kind of questions too much if you have somebody that likes to be entertained. But if you have an entertainer in front of you, and whether you don't know this in the beginning, I want you to make sure that you have researched this individual as thoroughly as possible. And if there's anything in common that you have, let's say a mutual connection or the school you attended or anything else, I want you to make sure that you bring this up in the interview, because what I've said in the past, it was your resume and the phone screen that got you to the interview. That's what validated your competence. Now it becomes more about compatibility and likability. And one of the best ways to get into rapport is to share a similar experience. So I hope you found this video informative and useful. And if you haven't already done so, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. Hit that bell notification, as I do upload new career tips and strategies every Tuesday, and I'd hate for you to miss anything. Thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.